Too loud, too hidden, too confusing? This week, we're turning down the noise and the nonsense when it comes to streaming. Hey everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Bill Number, where we break down the policies behind the headlines and the noise behind the actual noise. I'm Stephen, and today's story, it's loud, literally.
Oh, my ears. Yes. Today we're talking about California's newest attempt to save your eardrums and your sanity from screaming commercials and empty pocketbooks, all just because you want to see Robert Irwin body roll on Dancing with the Stars.
But really, Sarah, you know that moment when you're streaming something cozy, maybe a nice mellow scene, and then all of a sudden, an ad for car insurance assaults your living room?
Oh, don't I ever. I feel like half the time I'm watching TV these days, I'm scrambling for the remote. I've heard
Yes.
that advertising in the UK is quite different than here in the US. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
We have a different approach, you see. So in Britain, we like watching television and we hate watching ads. So for a long time, we've tried to limit the number of ads and how intrusive they are. And so, like product placement in TV and all that kind of stuff, we're not very keen on it. Advertising agencies realized that people really hated advertising. And so they said, okay, well, let's actually try and make the advertising more entertaining. So we'll actually make ads that are funny. So we want to make
Mm,
ads that people actually enjoy watching so that when you
mm,
watch the ad, in your show rather than just thinking, oh my God, this is terrible. When's the show coming back on? You actually laugh and you think,
yeah,
oh, that's quite fun.
yeah.
So this whole industry developed of creating these sometimes quite surreal advertising campaigns. This was even before the days when things went viral to try and make a viral advertising campaign. So the next day at work, people would say, oh my God, I saw this ad last night. It was so funny. It was blah, blah, blah. It's almost as though you're talking about a TV show, you're talking about the ad as well. And that's the
Okay.
way to sort of push the
Okay.
product.
Also, our ads are undeniably dominated by Big Pharma. And I just always laugh because the ads are so loud now. We all kind of just think that they don't know how to normalize the video.
Mm.
People just think that this can't be on purpose because you're like, oh, it's technology and the video just is different and blah, blah. No, it's
Yeah.
by design.
I think particularly here, most services that you get streaming still don't do ad breaks, but some
Mm,
do, and the ones that do are super annoying. So
yeah.
call out to like Now TV, which is part of Sky TV, which is our major sort of cable network, and they have the rights to HBO and things. So if you want to watch
Hmm.
HBO shows in the UK, you're going to be watching Now TV, and so they have it's a subscription service, so I pay a subscription to them, but then they still show ads, and that sort of stuff
Yes.
winds me up so much because I'm subscribing to it, so I don't have to pay ads. How can you then still show me ads? And then they go, oh, but you can pay extra and not
Right.
have the ads.
Right.
And I was refused to do that for a long time because I thought that's outrageous. You charged me twice, but in the end, I just couldn't stand the ads so bad that I actually paid that little bit extra to get them removed. And so now I don't really watch shows, channels that actually show me ads because it winds me up that much.
I haven't had cable or paid for cable in over 10 years. I've only used streaming. And
Yeah,
in
me.
the last 10 years, they've brought back the ad plans. We were doing our yearly budgeting last week, and I was seeing how much we were paying for Paramount Plus, Peacock, Hulu, all these things. And I was like, oh my God, we're paying more than we would pay for traditional cable.
Absolutely,
And we're not paying for
absolutely.
the ad tier ones. But then
Yeah.
you kind of think about how much TV you watch and how much of your life is getting wasted watching these
Mhm.
ads, and you're getting screamed at. And then you're like, you know what? Maybe it's worth
And
the extra $50.
yeah, but talking about the types of ads, then, yeah. So certainly when I was in America, I think I was there once around election time, and so
Hmm.
TV just tends to be dominated by political ads, which are just terrible as well, absolutely terrible ads, and these big pharma ads. So it's just a constant stream of terrible political ads, and then these sort of adverts for terrible diseases is what it seems to be. Have you got this terrible disease? And after you watch it, you go, oh my God, maybe I have. I don't know. Do I actually need this thing that you're advertising? And then at the end, you get the big long list of all the side effects. So it may cause flatulence, heartburn, and death, or whatever. Well, I don't
Right,
want your medicine. But you don't get any of that over here. There is zero political advertising and zero medicine advertising
No,
on
that's
TV. It's
because
just
medicine isn't
not.
necessarily a business over there.
It's not. It's not.
Okay, well, let's get into it today. Apparently,
Okay.
California is definitely in your camp and has had enough when it comes to noise and all of these pricing issues when it comes to streaming.
Mhm.
But the federal government is also getting into the mix.
Yes, absolutely. So let's sort of dig into this. But before we do, why don't you tell us a little bit about the science behind all this? So why are ads louder than the actual TV that they're
Yes.
interrupting?
Okay, so this is partially down to something that's called dynamic range compression. And this is the way that TV program makers vary the volume for different parts of the show for dramatic effect. So let's say that they make a dialogue about 80% of the volume high, and then events like explosions or gunfights a lot higher at that 100% mark because they really want that to land and have an impact. But the advertisers also want to grab and get your attention, and so they also want to be blasting things out at this maximum level. So the average volume is much higher for ads. So if you're feeling like they are, it's because they are. This is what legislation like the Calm Act that we'll talk about, or the European Broadcast Union rules that are elsewhere across the pond, seek to regulate as they set an average loudness budget for advertisers to decide how to spend it. So they can maybe start out with a loud jingle to grab your attention and then have the rest at a kind of more quiet, normal range that we would expect, or do it the other way around to really end with a bang, literally.
I never realized there was quite so much involved in making ads. I thought they just, or even in making TV, I thought, an actor would vary the volume of their voice. So you get these programs now where, because they're quite arty, they all mumble, which
Mm,
like really winds up people, myself, because you can't understand what they're saying. But actually, I didn't realize that it was the post production, the sort of sound editing stuff where they actually
hmm
control the volume of different parts
hmm
of the show. Quite interesting.
Yes. Oh, yes. Don Draper would love all of this, I am sure. So does another actor, Governor Gavin Newsom, who just signed Senate Bill 576, which is a first of its kind state law to make sure that streaming ads can't play louder than the other programs that they're interrupting. So it's basically the sequel to the federal Calm Act, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, and that is the Commercial Advertisement Loudness Mitigation Act of 2010. So this is a law that's a little bit older. It's been on the books for about 15 years. But this, fun fact, passed when we were still watching cable. So streaming wasn't necessarily the big thing that it is today, back when they did manage to get this passed.
Ah, yes, I remember it. The ancient days of DVRs, channel flipping. Even a few video recorders were still around, and people would drag out their old video clips and things. I think young people these days wouldn't even know what that is. Okay, so Sarah, walk me through the backstory then of this. How did we end up needing a new quiet ad law?
Yeah, so like I said, back in 2010 when this passed, there was not streaming. And so when they created the Calm Act, it only targeted broadcasters and cable
Mhm.
providers. And it was essentially, hey, stop blasting commercials louder than the shows because this has long since been an issue. It's a tactic from the marketing and ad agency. And the FCC set an average sound level standard during this act, and that helps people not be accosted by their TV. And it worked. It's worked for our television. And so if you watch television, you probably have no idea what we're talking about today. But then came the streaming boom, which is, we got Hulu, YouTube, Disney, you name it. And all because the Comm Act only applied to what existed then, aka broadcast and cable, streaming has slipped right through the cracks because, as we love to see with legislation, it's very direct and very finite. And if there's any room to wiggle, people will be wiggling. So there is no average loudness rules, and they can deafen you with these big pharma. If you're allergic to this, don't take it ads.
I can see, and I can understand why this is only really sort of coming into prominence now, because These streaming services didn't used to show ads. It just wasn't
Hmm.
their thing, was it? For a long time, the good thing about them was that they didn't show ads and they operate on a subscription model. But it is recently more and more and more of them have actually started to show ads as well as their subscription
Hmm.
model. The ones they do make you sort of dive for the remote to switch over and do something else while the ads are on. They're basically living in this lawless loudness frontier.
Exactly. We are in a new frontier, the loudness frontier. But as this kind of ad supported tiers are exploding with streaming, which we've been seeing the last few years, all of these streaming partners are bringing back ads. Thank you, Netflix and Disney, primarily for leading the way there. The problem has really come roaring back. And it's something where, I mean, even my friends are talking about it, and people are just so surprised by how loud these ads are. And that's probably also because when we watch cable, this doesn't happen. So this is not normal.
We all went then from paying premium for these services and having ad-free services to having to have ads and having them locked down to now having to get yelled at when we see or rather hear these ads as well. What's going on with our TV?
Yes, and that's the issue. And that's also why the Calm Modernization Act was proposed in 2023, which was supposed to give an update to this old law for this new streaming era and give the FCC power to enforce ad volume rules across all platforms, not just broadcast or cable. It even included smart details like letting smaller streaming services delay compliance for a year and a government accountability office review to track the effectiveness of this.
Ah, okay. Well, that seems like perfectly sensible, completely uncontroversial, absolutely something that should happen. So, knowing Congress, I'm sure that it just sailed right through and everyone voted for it, right?
Unfortunately, it stalled and died at the beginning of this year, and it hasn't been picked back up since.
Okay, what a surprise. So, California, being California, then goes, okay, if Congress won't fix it, we will.
Exactly. So, California's Senate Bill 576, authored by Senator Nancy Skinner, stepped up to close this gap at the state level, which California is known to do. Shout out to our episode on fuel emissions, which was all about how the federal government is trying to stop California from, let's just say, Californiaing and forcing businesses to change for the country simply by passing a law just in the state.
Okay, well, let's talk then more about SB 576. So the law basically says no ad shall be louder than the show it interrupts. Clean, simple, elegant.
Yes, and enforceable. Starting July 1st, 2026, streaming platforms in California will have to meet the same loudness standards as broadcast TV. And amazingly, this bill is actually really short and to the point.
Okay, well, that makes a change as well. So who's policing the decibels?
The California Energy Commission and the Attorney General's Office. They'll handle complaints and enforcement. Platforms will have to use audio normalization tools, kind of like a digital volume control, to stay in compliance.
Okay, so it sounds very similar to what happens already on cable TV. So, in short, then you could say no more jump scare ads.
Yes, exactly. And supporters call it long overdue for consumer protection. Like we said, we've already had an act like this on the books for the way that we are traditionally watching TV. And critics say that smaller streaming services might struggle with the tech costs, but it's a clear signal that California is treating streaming like the new TV, which, let's be honest, it really is, and holding it to some standards. So here we are with tech finally having legislation catch up to it a little bit.
Okay, excellent. And since California tends to set the national tone, pun absolutely intended, other states could follow.
Yes, that's right. Loud ads might soon go away.
So we've quieted the ads, but California didn't stop there as well. They also went after sneaky pricing.
Yes, so this is also another interesting part of this world of streaming that while I was looking into this California law, I came across. So California is really here to save us when it comes to the streaming world, which kind of makes sense. A lot of the studios are there, so maybe they're on the first frontier there. But they also have Senate Bill 478, which is California's honest pricing law, which kicked off July 1st of 2024, so last year. And this takes on what's known as drip pricing, or when something costs $19.99, but by the time you check out, it's $29.99 because there's convenience fees, and then, oh, you clicked it from this button or whatever.
yes, the invisible tax of America's times. Of course, something that we haven't had in European areas for some time due to the dastardly European community who realized this quite a long time ago and passed some laws. And we've even
Yes.
still got them in the UK.
Yep. Yeah, so under Senate Bill 478, any advertised price must include all mandatory fees, and the only exemptions are taxes and some shipping costs. So
Hmm.
businesses can still itemize, but they can't just do a click bait and switch.
Aha. And enforcement's already underway, as I understand, especially in sectors like ticketing, lodging, live events, where service fees have got, shall we say, very creative.
Yes, exactly.
And California's not alone in this one either, right?
Right. So a lot of this does have to do with ticketing. A big problem here is how expensive concert tickets end up being. You think you're buying a $30 ticket, and by the end of it, it's $70. But this is
Hmm.
another large problem with streaming on TV. And we're seeing a lot of this with Netflix increasing the prices if you don't want to have ads and you thought you paid for a plan and now it's different, blah, blah, blah. And so New Jersey is in the mix, and theirs is a little bit more focused on the TV piece here. So they have signed Senate Bill 1225 in 2025 this year, which does the same thing for cable, satellite, and streaming TV, this all in pricing, no surprises, where you're just paying what you're paying and you know what that cost is and you're getting what you're getting, and there's not all these little sneaky things in there. And the FCC is also jumping in here and adopting this all in pricing rules for cable and satellite providers. Back in 2024, they did this. And streaming is definitely on their radar next, but I'm sure it will be a little bit more of something to pass because I am sure Netflix has quite a few lobbyists that are good at their jobs.
Yes, yes. You've got to imagine that all of these huge mega corporations that just keep merging and getting even bigger and taking over this media landscape, that they can exercise quite some influence and spend some money in Washington. But between loud ads and hidden fees, lawmakers are basically saying, "Stop tricking us in volume and in value."
That is very right. And all of this is definitely about transparency. And it's what we want to hear and what we want to pay in what we're paying for as a product. And a lot of this is people trying to allow consumers to take back a tiny little morsel of the power of the experience of these things that we are shelling out hundreds and hundreds of dollars for every single year.
Absolutely. And for consumers, so it means fewer mid-show jump scares and fewer checkout shocks when they actually start paying for things.
Yes, and for regulators, it's catching up with reality. Streaming is TV now, and these prices have gotten completely out of control. And people have just been kind of running rampant for, let's say, the last 10 years with these hidden fees, these loud ads, these kind of changes, and all of these things. And we really do have to have these regulations catch up with the time, catch up with the tech. We don't want to stifle innovation, but we also don't want to make it completely insufferable to live and consume things if you live in the US.
Absolutely. So for the industry, then, it's a hint that nationwide consistency might be coming, which could actually make compliance easier for them long term. And in the long term, maybe they could consider, I don't know, maybe all these different streaming services could sort of get together and have an agreement where people can just pay one simple fee to watch all of their programs together. And they could call themselves, I don't know, maybe a network or something. And then we just pay one fee and we'd be able to watch all the TV. It'd be
Yes.
fantastic.
Yes, we are definitely on the loop back to actually just having cable.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and it just comes over the internet this time.
Yes, exactly. I do enjoy not having an ugly dish attached to my house, I will say. But the message here is really clear. Fairness and clarity should be part of the experience, and California is really throwing their weight around here, which we see them do quite often, like we were mentioning, where if you're going to build for California, you may as well just have that across all 50 states, or there's a toggle that you can put depending on the state regulatory. But I can see this one bill being adopted in many places next year because it made huge headlines, and it's one of those things where I think the bill itself is actually confirming to people that an issue they've perceived actually exists, because a little bit of the time when you're in these situations you're like, is this louder? Is there something wrong with me? Why does this feel so assaulting? And with bills like this, you're like, oh, this is actually happening. And actually, I don't want that happening. I want my state to pass this too. So it's pretty interesting.
It is, and you can understand that actually the streaming services, they won't mind. They don't want to annoy their customers, so
Mm-hmm.
they'll probably be okay with it. But what about the advertisers? I think the advertisers
Mm-hmm.
themselves would also say our adverts are supposed to make people buy our products. We also don't want to be annoying people. So if
Mm-hmm.
this is annoying people, let's turn it down.
Right.
So this could well become something where everybody just agrees, yeah, right. The jig's up.
Yes.
Let's switch the volume down and let's keep our pricing honest.
Yes. So right. So right. Well, that is all for this episode of Beyond the Bill Number.
Yeah, so if you'd like today's dive into the sound and fury of streaming regulations, hit that follow button and check out the full blog at billtrap50.com.
Because when it comes to policy, there's always more than meets the mute button.
Yes, see you next time.